My name is Julia Baker, a 42-year-old software developer and single mother living in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The barbecue sauce on my plate suddenly looked like blood. I looked up at my sister, Amanda. She was holding a glass of wine, smiling like she had just told the best joke in the world. But it wasn't a joke. We were sitting at the long picnic table in my parents' backyard for Labor Day. Everyone was there. My 15-year-old son, Alex, sat next to me. He was looking down at his paper plate, trying to make himself invisible. Amanda pointed her fork right at him. Her voice was loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Oh, come on, Julia," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Let's be real. Alex is always going to be special. He's limited. A kid like that is always going to need help just to get through the day." Then she laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. I waited. I waited for my mother to say something. I waited for my father to tell her to stop, but nobody said a word. My mother just took a sip of her iced tea. My brother-in-law looked away, studying the fence. I felt Alex stiffen beside me. I saw his face turn bright red. I saw him fighting back tears he was too old to cry in public. He dropped his fork. The plastic clatter echoed in the terrible silence. That was the moment everything changed. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I just went completely still. I looked at my sister, who was living a rich life that I secretly paid for, and I realized I was finally done. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Julia Baker, a 42-year-old software developer. I sat there at the picnic table, staring at the condensation dripping down the side of my glass. The silence around us was heavy, but inside my head it was loud. It was like a replay of the last 20 years was flashing before my eyes. This wasn't new. That was the worst part about it. Amanda's cruelty wasn't a surprise. It was a habit. It was a language she had been speaking to me for as long as I could remember. I looked at my sister. She was laughing, tilting her head back, her expensive sunglasses perched on top of her perfectly highlighted hair. She looked like the picture of success. She looked like the winner, and she looked at me like I was the loser. Growing up, it was always the same story. Amanda was the sparkly one. She was the one who needed the new dresses, the dance lessons, the attention. I was Julia. I was the sturdy one, the one who did her homework, the one who didn't cause trouble, the one who didn't need anything. My parents fell into that trap easily. "Julia is fine," they would say. "Julia can take care of herself, but Amanda needs support." They didn't realize that support would turn into a lifetime of enabling. When we became adults, the gap between us only seemed to get wider, at least on the surface. Amanda married Greg. Greg was a nice guy, handsome, with a job in sales that sounded important but relied heavily on commission. They bought a big house in a subdivision that was just a little too expensive for them. They joined the country club because connections matter. They leased luxury cars because image is everything. I took a different path. I went into software development. I kept my head down. I lived in a small apartment for years, saving every penny. I started my own consulting firm when I was 28. I worked 18-hour days. I built something real. I made a lot of money, a quiet, substantial amount of money, but nobody in my family really understood what I did. To them, I was just working on computers. It sounded boring. It sounded small. Then Alex was born. When Alex was diagnosed with autism at age 3, the dynamic in our family locked into concrete. Suddenly, I wasn't just the boring sister. I was the unlucky one. I was the one to be pitied. I remember the first time I told Amanda about the diagnosis. I was terrifyingly vulnerable. I was a single mom by then, Alex's father having left when the going got tough. I needed my sister. "Oh, Julia," she had said, her voice dripping with a fake sugary sweetness. "I am so sorry, that's just devastating. I can't imagine having a child who isn't, all there. It must be so hard for you." She didn't offer to babysit. She didn't ask what she could do. She just placed herself above me. She had normal children. I had a problem. Over the years, the disrespect became a pattern. It was subtle at first, then it became blatant. At Christmas, she would compare our kids constantly. "My Connor just made the varsity football team," she would announce while opening gifts. Then she would turn to me, eyes wide with false sympathy. "And how is Alex doing? Is he still playing with those? What are they, Legos, at his age?" "He likes engineering," I would say quietly. "He builds complex structures." "Right," she would smirk. "Legos, whatever keeps him occupied, I guess." She treated Alex like he was a broken toy. She spoke to him in a loud, slow voice like he was deaf or stupid. She never tried to understand him. She never saw his brilliance. She only saw what he couldn't do. And while she was putting me down, she was taking my money. That was the secret that burned in my stomach as I sat at that barbecue. The financial truth was a twisted knot that bound us together. It started 5 years ago. My father had a health scare, and my parents' retirement savings took a hit. They were worried about Amanda. Amanda and Greg were drowning in debt. They were living a lifestyle they couldn't afford, trying to keep up appearances at the country club and the private school. My mother had come to me, crying in my kitchen. "Julia, you have to help," she begged. "Amanda is going to lose the house. The kids, they'll have to leave their school. It would destroy them. You know how sensitive Amanda is. She can't handle that kind of failure. You're doing so well, you have so much. Can't you just help a little?" I loved my niece and nephews. I didn't want them to suffer because their parents were irresponsible. So I agreed. But I made a mistake. I didn't just give them a loan. I stepped in and fixed it. I started paying the tuition for Amanda's 3 children at St. Augustine Academy. It was an elite private school. The bill was astronomical. I paid it directly to the school so Amanda wouldn't have to worry about the logistics. Then, it was the allowance. My mother suggested it. Just to help them with groceries and gas until Greg's commission picks up. I set up a standing transfer, $5,000 a month, every single month, for 3 years. Then it was the country club. "It's good for business," Amanda had argued to our parents. "Greg meets clients there." But they couldn't pay the dues, so I paid them. I put it on my credit card as an automatic payment. I was funding her entire life. I was paying for the very status she used to look down on me. I drove a 5-year-old sedan. I lived in a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. I didn't wear designer labels. To look at us, you would think Amanda was the rich one and I was struggling. And she believed it. That was the craziest part. She had convinced herself that she deserved this money. She never said thank you, not once. In her mind, the money coming from me was just natural resources, like water from a tap. She actually thought she was better than me. I remembered a lunch we had 6 months ago. I paid, of course. Amanda was complaining about the service. "You really should dress up more, Julia," she had said, picking at her salad. "You look so tired, and that sweater, it looks like something Mom would wear. You need to put yourself out there. Maybe if you tried harder, you could find a husband like Greg, someone to take care of you." I almost choked on my water. I was literally paying for the salad she was eating. I was paying for the highlights in her hair. I was paying for the gas in the Range Rover she drove to the restaurant. And she was telling me I needed a man to take care of me, but I didn't say anything. I just nodded and took the check. Why did I do it? Why did I let it go on for so long? I told myself it was for the kids. I told myself it was to keep the peace for Mom and Dad. But sitting there at the barbecue, watching Alex stare at his shoes, I realized the truth. I did it because I was trying to buy their love. I thought if I was useful enough, if I gave enough, eventually they would respect me. Eventually they would see me. But they didn't see me. They only saw a checkbook. And they didn't see Alex at all. They saw a mistake. The heat of the afternoon sun felt suffocating. I looked around the table. My mother was chatting with Greg about golf. She was ignoring the insult Amanda had just hurled at my son. She was choosing peace over protection. She was choosing Amanda, just like she always did. I looked at my bank app on my phone under the table. I saw the pending transfer scheduled for the 1st of the month. $5,000. Destination, Amanda's checking. I felt a cold hardness settle in my chest. It wasn't rage. Rage is hot and messy. This was ice. This was clarity. They thought I was weak. They thought I was the doormat. They thought I was the single mom with the autistic kid who needed their pity and their social approval. They had no idea that I held the keys to their entire kingdom. The barbecue continued. The air smelled of charcoal and grilled meat, a smell that usually made me happy, but today it made my stomach turn. Amanda wasn't done. She had tasted blood with that first comment, and since nobody had stopped her, she wanted more. She was holding court at the end of the table. "I'm just saying," Amanda continued, her voice projecting like she was on a stage. "We have to be realistic about the future. It's not fair to give false hope." She looked directly at me again. "Julia, have you looked into group homes? For when he's older." The chatter at the table died down again. This was a line. Even my father looked uncomfortable. He cleared his throat. "Amanda, let's not talk about this now. Why not? Amanda shrugged, taking a bite of a deviled egg. We're family. We should be able to talk about the hard stuff. I'm just worried about Julia. She's going to be burdened with him forever. He's never going to live independently. He's never going to have a real job. He's never going to get married. It's a life sentence. A life sentence. She called my son a life sentence. Next to me, Alex stood up. He moved abruptly, his knee hitting the table leg. The lemonade in his cup sloshed over the rim. I need to go to the bathroom, he mumbled. He didn't look at anyone. He just turned and walked fast toward the back door of my parents' house. His shoulders were hunched up around his ears. He walked with that stiff, rapid gait he used when he was trying to hold himself together. I watched him go. My heart broke into 1,000 sharp pieces. He's so sensitive, Amanda sighed, rolling her eyes. You coddle him, Julia, that's the problem. He needs to toughen up. The world isn't going to be nice to him. You're the one not being nice to him, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It was very low, very steady. Amanda laughed. I'm the only one being honest. Everyone else tiptoes around it. I'm just saying what everyone thinks. I stood up. Excuse me. I walked away from the table. I didn't run. I walked calmly toward the house. I could feel their eyes on my back. I could hear Amanda muttering something about me being dramatic. I went inside the cool, dark house. I walked down the hallway to the guest room where Alex usually went to hide during family gatherings. The door was closed. I knocked softly. Alex, honey, it's Mom. There was no answer. I opened the door. Alex was sitting on the floor in the corner between the bed and the wall. He had his noise-canceling headphones on. He was rocking back and forth rhythmically. His face was wet. He wasn't making a sound, but the tears were streaming down his cheeks. I sat down on the floor next to him. I didn't touch him right away. I knew he needed space when he was overloaded. I just sat there being a presence. After a few minutes, he took the headphones off. He looked at me with red, swollen eyes. Is it true? He asked. His voice was small and cracked. Is what true, baby? That I'm a burden. That I'm broken. I felt a physical pain in my chest, sharp and agonizing. No, no, Alex, you are not a burden. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are smart and kind and brilliant. Aunt Amanda says I'm limited, he said, staring at the carpet. She says I'll never do anything real. Aunt Amanda is wrong, I said firmly. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know about the coding competition. She doesn't know that you built a whole server by yourself. She doesn't see you. She laughs at me, he whispered. They all laugh. That was it. That was the moment the last thread of obligation snapped. I looked at my son. I saw the pain that my family, my own flesh and blood, had inflicted on him. They did it casually. They did it for sport. They did it while eating food I paid for in a lifestyle I subsidized. I had spent years trying to be the good sister and the good daughter. I had swallowed my pride. I had written the checks. I had smoothed things over. I thought I was keeping the family together, but I wasn't keeping the family together. I was financing my own abuse. I was paying them to hurt my son. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was an accomplice. By giving them money, I was giving them the power to stand over us. I was validating their delusion that they were superior. I wiped a tear from Alex's cheek. Listen to me, Alex, I said. This is the last time, I promise you. This is the last time anyone in this family ever makes you feel like this. He looked at me, confused. Do we have to leave? No, I said, a cold calm washed over me. We don't have to leave. We are going to finish the barbecue, but things are going to be different. How? Because I'm done helping them, I said. I stood up and held out my hand. Wash your face. Put your headphones back on if you want. You can stay in here and play on your tablet. I'll be back in a little while to get you. Okay. Okay, he said. I walked into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked the same as I had 10 minutes ago, a woman in a simple navy sundress with hair pulled back in a ponytail. But I wasn't the same. The pleaser was dead. I took my phone out of my pocket. I checked the signal. It was strong. I walked out of the bathroom and went into the den, which was empty. I sat down at my father's old desk. I opened my laptop bag, which I always carried with me for work emergencies. I opened the laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dim room. I logged into my email. I logged into my bank portal. My hands weren't shaking. They were steady as rocks. I felt a strange sense of detachment. It was like I was performing surgery. I was cutting out a tumor. It had to be precise. It had to be complete. I could hear Amanda's laugh coming from the backyard. It was a high, cackling sound. She was probably telling another story about how hard her life was, or how exhausting it was to deal with the contractors for her kitchen renovation. A renovation I was paying for. I took a deep breath. It was time. I stared at the spreadsheet I had created years ago titled Family Support. I usually avoided looking at the grand total because it made me feel nauseous, but today I forced myself to look. The numbers were stark. They were black and white. They didn't lie. St. Augustine Academy tuition, $32,000 per year per child. 3 children, that was $96,000 a year. I had been paying it for 4 years. That was nearly $400,000. Just for school. I thought about the emails I got from the school. Thank you for your prompt payment, Miss Julia. They knew who paid the bills. But on the school directory, Amanda and Greg were listed as patrons. They went to the galas. They sat at the VIP tables. I wasn't even invited to the fall fundraiser last year. Amanda said it was couples only and she didn't want me to feel awkward. I had paid for the table she sat at. I scrolled down. Monthly support stipend, $5,000 per month. 36 months. $180,000. This money was supposed to be for essentials. But I knew where it went. I saw Amanda's Instagram. It went to trips to Cabo. It went to the new designer handbags she flaunted. It went to the Botox and the spa days. She called it self-care. I called it theft by guilt. She had told me once, Julia, money just isn't that important to you. You're a simple person. You don't need things like I do. I'm an aesthetic person. I need beauty around me to function. I had nodded then, feeling vaguely ashamed of my simplicity. Now, reading those numbers, I realized how manipulative that statement was. She had framed my financial responsibility as a lack of taste, and her greed as a refined sensitivity. I scrolled further. Country club membership, $15,000 initiation fee, $800 monthly dues. Bar tabs and dining minimums, average $500 a month. I looked at the latest charge on my credit card statement. Oak Haven Country Club, $450. That was from last weekend. They had gone to the Sunday brunch. I wasn't invited to that either. I had been keeping a secret ledger of my own exploitation. And the worst part was, I had kept it secret to protect their pride. I never told Greg that I was paying the tuition. Amanda made me promise. Greg is so proud, she had said. If he knew his sister-in-law was paying for the kids' school, it would crush him. Please, Julia. Let him think I'm handling it with my inheritance from Grandma. Grandma left us $5,000 each. That was gone in a week. So Greg walked around thinking he was providing this lavish life. He strutted around the barbecue, talking about the market and his investments. He was living in a fantasy world constructed entirely on my bank account. And my parents, they knew about the tuition. They knew about the monthly help. But they chose to forget it. It was inconvenient for them to acknowledge that their golden child was a financial failure and their boring daughter was the savior. If they acknowledged it, they would have to treat me with respect, and that would upset the family order. The total at the bottom of the spreadsheet was staggering. Over the last 5 years, I had given my sister nearly $750,000. $750,000. I could have bought a bigger house. I could have set up a trust fund for Alex. I could have retired early. Instead, I bought Amanda a fake life. And in return, she mocked my son. She told him he was broken. She told the world he was worthless. The transaction was over. The account was closed. I felt a surge of adrenaline. It wasn't fear, it was power. For years, I felt like I had no voice in this family. But I had the loudest voice of all. I just hadn't used it. Money is a language, and I was about to scream. I opened a new email draft. Recipient: Admissions Office, St. Augustine Academy CC, Bursar's Office Subject. Termination of tuition sponsorship. The Miller children. I typed quickly. My fingers flew across the keys. I didn't need to draft or edit. The words were ready. To whom it may concern, I am writing to formally notify you that I, Julia Baker, will no longer be responsible for the tuition payments for Connor Miller, Sarah Miller, and Braden Miller, effective immediately. Please cancel all automatic payments associated with my bank account, ending in 4590. Do not process the upcoming semester's tuition, which is scheduled for withdrawal on Monday. Please direct all future invoices and financial communications to the children's legal guardians, Amanda and Greg Miller. I have no further financial obligation regarding their enrollment. Sincerely, Julia Baker. I read it once. It was cold, it was professional, it was final. I hovered my mouse over the send button. If I sent this, the fallout would be nuclear. The kids would likely be kicked out within the month if Amanda and Greg couldn't pay. And I knew they couldn't pay. They didn't have $32,000. They probably didn't have $3,000. I thought about my nephew Connor. He was a nice kid, though he was starting to act entitled like his mother. Was it fair to punish him? Then I heard Amanda's voice drifting from the open window again. It's just hard to relate to Julia, she was saying. She's just so bitter. I think she's jealous of my life, honestly. She sees how happy we are, how normal our family is, and it eats her up. Jealous. She thought I was jealous. I clicked send. The little whoosh sound of the email sending was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I wasn't done. I opened my banking app. I went to scheduled transfers. I selected Amanda Monthly Support $5,000. I clicked Cancel Series. Are you sure? The app asked. Yes, deleted. I went to my credit card portal. I selected Authorized Users. I found Amanda Miller and Greg Miller. I clicked Remove User. Card canceled immediately. I went to the Oak Haven Country Club website. I logged into the member portal using the login I paid for but never used. I went to billing. I removed my credit card information. I replaced it with the billing address for Amanda's house, leaving the payment field blank. They would get a bill in the mail next month. A bill they couldn't pay. It took me 12 minutes. In 12 minutes, I dismantled the entire infrastructure of Amanda's life. I closed the laptop. I put it back in my bag. I stood up and smoothed down my dress. I checked my face in the reflection of the window. I looked calm. I looked peaceful. I walked back out to the backyard. The sun was beginning to set. The fireflies were coming out. Amanda was eating a slice of key lime pie. She waved her fork at me when I walked out. "Oh, there she is," she called out. "Finally coming out of your cave. Come have some pie, Julia. Don't be such a sourpuss." I smiled. It was a genuine smile. It was the smile of someone who knows a secret. "No thanks, Amanda," I said lightly. "I'm not hungry." I sat down next to my mom. "Is Alex okay?" Mom asked quietly, looking guilty. "He's fine," I said. "He's watching a movie." "Amanda didn't mean it," Mom whispered. "You know how she is. She just speaks without thinking. Don't hold a grudge, Julia. It ruins the family dynamic." "I'm not holding a grudge," I said honestly. "I'm not angry at all." And I wasn't. The anger had evaporated. It had been replaced by anticipation. I watched Amanda laugh at something Greg said. She looked so comfortable. She looked so secure. She had no idea that the ground beneath her feet had already vanished. She was falling and she didn't even know it yet. I took a sip of my iced tea. It tasted sweet. "So," Amanda said, looking at me, "what were you doing inside for so long, working, even on a holiday?" "God, you really need to get a life, Julia." "I was just taking care of some housekeeping," I said, "cleaning up some old messes." "Boring," she sang out. "Maybe," I said, "but necessary." I sat there for another hour. I watched the sun go down. I listened to them talk about their upcoming vacation to Martha's Vineyard. A vacation they were planning to put on the credit card I had just canceled. I listened to Greg brag about how he was going to upgrade his golf clubs. I listened to Amanda talk about how Connor needed a tutor for math, but only the best, obviously. I listened, and I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The email was sitting in the inbox of the St. Augustine admissions director. The bank transfer had been stopped. The credit card was dead. Monday morning was going to be very, very interesting. "Come on, Alex," I called out when it was time to go. Alex came out of the house, his headphones around his neck. He looked wary. He stayed close to me. "Say goodbye to Aunt Amanda," my mom urged. Alex looked at Amanda. He didn't say anything. "Cat got your tongue," Amanda teased. "Whatever, bye kiddo, try to be more social next time." I put my arm around Alex's shoulder. I felt his tension. "We're leaving," I said. "See you at Sunday dinner," Mom asked. "We'll see," I said. We walked to my car, my sensible 5-year-old sedan. We got in. I started the engine. "Did you really mean it?" Alex asked as we pulled out of the driveway. "That you're done helping them?" "I really meant it," I said. "What's going to happen?" "Consequences," I said. "Real life is going to happen." I drove us home. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the heavy weight of dread in my stomach. I felt light. I went to sleep that night and slept like a baby. I knew the storm was coming. But for the first time, I wasn't the one standing in the rain. I was the one watching from the window. Monday morning arrived with a deceptively quiet sunrise. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. just like I always did. I made coffee. I made Alex his favorite oatmeal. I packed his lunch. My routine was exactly the same, but the air in the house felt different. It felt cleaner. I dropped Alex off at school. He seemed lighter today, too. Maybe he sensed that something had shifted, even if he didn't understand the mechanics of it. I went back home to my home office. I had actual work to do, client codes to check, a Zoom meeting at noon, but I couldn't focus. I sat there with my phone on the desk next to me, screen facing up. I was waiting. It didn't take long. At 9:15 a.m. the phone lit up. Amanda. I watched it ring for a moment. I took a sip of my coffee, then I picked it up. "Hello," I said, my voice was calm. "Julia," Amanda's voice was high-pitched, bordering on a screech. She was breathing hard, like she had been running. "You need to call the bank right now. There's been some kind of massive screw-up." "What's wrong?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "I'm at the school," she said. I could hear the echo of the administrative hallway in the background. "I just dropped the kids off, and the bursar, Mrs. Gable, pulled me aside. She said the tuition payment for the semester was declined. She said the sponsorship was canceled." "Okay," I said. "What do you mean, okay?" Amanda yelled. "It's not okay, it's embarrassing. I'm standing here in the office and people are looking at me. You need to fix this immediately. Call them and tell them it was a mistake. Give them the card number again." "It wasn't a mistake, Amanda," I said. There was a silence on the other end. It was a stunned, thick silence. "What?" she whispered. "I canceled the payments," I said. I spoke slowly and clearly so there could be no misunderstanding. "I sent an email on Friday night. I am no longer paying for the children's tuition at St. Augustine." You what?" Her voice trembled. "Is this a joke?" "Because it's not funny, Julia. The semester starts today. They won't let them in class if the balance isn't cleared." "I know," I said. "That's how private schools work." "But why?" She sounded genuinely baffled. That was the thing about Amanda. She was so deep in her entitlement that the idea of me saying no didn't even compute. "You can't just do that, you promised." "I didn't promise a lifetime supply of money," I said. "I helped you when you were in a crisis. But the crisis is over. You and Greg have had years to get on your feet, and instead of getting on your feet, you've been standing on my neck." "I don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, her anger returning. "We are family, you have plenty of money. Why are you doing this to the kids? This is cruel, Julia, this is so petty." "It's not petty," I said. "It's a reallocation of resources." "Reallocation?" she scoffed. "You sound like a robot. What does that even mean?" "It means I'm investing in things that matter to me," I said. "And funding a lifestyle for someone who bullies my autistic son isn't on my list anymore." "Oh my God," she groaned. "Is this about the barbecue? Are you serious?" "Julia, it was a joke. You are so sensitive. You're ruining my children's education because you can't take a joke." "It wasn't a joke to Alex," I said. "And it wasn't a joke to me." "Fine," she yelled. "Fine, I'm sorry. Is that what you want? I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Now fix the tuition." "No," I said. "Julia, please. Greg is going to kill me. We don't have $30,000 sitting around." "Then maybe public school is a better fit," I suggested. "The public schools in your district are very good. I went to public school. You went to public school. We turned out okay." "Public school?" She choked out the words like they were poison. "My kids can't go to public school. All their friends are here. It would destroy their social standing." "That's not my problem, Amanda," I said. "I'm telling Mom," she threatened. "I'm going to tell her you're being abusive." "Tell her," I said. "But before you go, there's one more thing you should know." "What?" she snapped. "The tuition isn't the only thing I canceled." I heard her breath hitch. "What do you mean?" "The monthly transfer," I said. "The $5,000, that's gone too, and the country club membership. I removed my card this morning." I heard a sound that sounded like a phone dropping or maybe a purse hitting the floor. "You can't," she whimpered. "Julia, you can't do that. That's our grocery money. That's the car payments. That's everything." "You and Greg are both adults," I said. "Greg has a job, you can get a job, you have options, but my bank account is closed." "You are destroying us," she screamed. "You are jealous, vindictive trash. I hate you. Do you hear me? I hate you." "I heard you loud and clear at the barbecue," I said. "Goodbye, Amanda." I hung up the phone. My hand was shaking slightly, but not from fear. It was from the adrenaline release. It was done. I had finally said the words. I sat there in the silence of my office. I expected to feel guilty. I had been trained since childhood to feel guilty whenever Amanda was upset. I waited for the wave of shame to hit me, but it didn't come. Instead, I thought about Alex. I thought about him crying in the dark guest room. I thought about him asking if he was a burden. And then I thought about Amanda screaming about her social standing while begging for my money. I turned back to my computer. I opened my work email. I started typing a reply to a client. For the first time in years, my mind was clear. I wasn't worrying about Amanda's bills. I wasn't worrying about keeping the peace. I was free, but I knew the silence wouldn't last. Amanda was right about one thing: she was going to call Mom, and Mom would be the next wave. It took exactly 45 minutes for my mother to arrive. I saw her car pull into my driveway. She didn't park carefully. She pulled in at an angle, half on the grass. She slammed the car door shut. I watched her from the kitchen window. She was walking fast, her purse swinging aggressively. My mother was a woman who hated conflict, but she hated messiness even more, and I had just created a massive mess. I unlocked the front door and opened it before she could knock. "Come in, Mom," I said. She stormed past me into the kitchen without saying a word. She slammed her purse down on the counter. Her face was flushed pink. "Fix it," she said. She didn't say hello. She just pointed a finger at me. "Fix it right now, Julia." "Would you like some coffee?" I asked. "I don't want coffee," she shouted. "I want you to pick up the phone and call St. Augustine." Amanda called me in hysterics. "She's in the parking lot at the school crying her eyes out. They won't let the kids into their classrooms. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is? For the whole family." "It sounds very stressful for her," I said calmly. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "Stressful? It's cruel. What has gotten into you?" She looked at me like I was a stranger. "You've always been the sensible one. You've always been the generous one. Why are you attacking your sister like this?" "I'm not attacking her," I said. "I'm just stopping the payments. There is a difference." "It's the same thing," Mom argued. "You know they rely on that money. You know Greg's job is inconsistent. You set them up for failure by pulling the rug out like this." "I didn't pull the rug out," I said. "I carried the rug for 5 years. I carried the furniture. I carried the house. And I'm tired, Mom." "This is about the barbecue, isn't it?" Mom narrowed her eyes. "Amanda told me you were upset. Look, I know she can be brash. She has a sharp tongue. But that's just Amanda. You know she doesn't mean it." "She means it," I said. "She doesn't. She loves Alex. She's just worried about him. She was trying to give you realistic advice." "Realistic advice?" I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Calling my son a life sentence is advice. Mocking him in front of strangers is love." "She didn't mean it like that." Mom dismissed it, waving her hand. "You are overreacting. You are punishing 3 innocent children, Connor, Sarah, and Brayden, because your feelings got hurt. That is selfish, Julia. It's incredibly selfish." I looked at my mother. I looked at the woman who raised me. I saw the fear in her eyes. She wasn't really worried about the kids' education. She was worried that the illusion of our perfect family was shattering. She was worried that if I stopped paying, Amanda's life would fall apart, and then she would have to deal with the mess. She wanted me to be the buffer. She wanted me to be the wallet and the punching bag so she could have peace. "Did Amanda tell you what she said to Alex?" I asked quietly. "I told you, she said she was sorry." "No," I said. "I'm asking you a specific question. Did she tell you exactly what she said to him?" Mom faltered. "She said, she made a comment about his future." "She looked at my 15-year-old son," I said, my voice steady but hard as steel, "and she told him he was limited. She laughed at him, she called him a burden, and when he got up to leave to hide his tears, she rolled her eyes and called him weak." I took a step closer to my mother. "And you sat there, Mom. You took a sip of your iced tea and you looked at the fence. You let her do it." The room went silent. The refrigerator hummed. A bird chirped outside. My mother's face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She knew it was true. "I have spent my entire life trying to buy my way into this family," I continued. "I thought if I paid for the school, and the club, and the house, that maybe you guys would respect me. Or at least you would respect my son, but it didn't work. You took the money and you still treated us like we were broken." "Julia," Mom's voice was softer now, wavering. "I am done paying for people who hurt my child," I said. "It's that simple. If Amanda wants a country club membership, she can pay for it. If she wants private school, she can get a second job. But I am not working 18 hours a day to fund a woman who abuses my son." Mom slumped against the counter. She looked old suddenly. The anger had drained out of her, replaced by a frantic anxiety. "But what are they going to do?" she whispered. "They can't afford that life, Julia. They'll lose everything." "Then they were living a lie," I said, "and it's time for them to wake up." "Greg will leave her," Mom said, her voice trembling. If the money stops, if the image cracks, he won't stay, you know how he is. If he leaves her because the money runs out, then he never loved her anyway, I said. And that's not my fault either. Mom looked at me for a long time. She was searching for the daughter she could push around, the daughter who would cave if she sighed loud enough. But that daughter wasn't there. You really aren't going to fix this, she said, realizing it for the first time. No, I said. I am fixing it. This is me fixing it. Mom picked up her purse. She moved slowly. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked defeated. I hope you know what you're doing, she said as she walked to the door. You're breaking the family apart. The family was already broken, I said. I just stopped painting over the cracks. She left. I locked the door behind her. I went back to the kitchen and poured the cold coffee down the sink. I washed the mug. I dried it. I put it away in the cupboard. I felt a profound sense of loneliness, but it wasn't a bad loneliness. It was the loneliness of a clean slate. I had stood my ground. I had protected my son. And for the first time in my life, I respected the woman I saw in the mirror. The next 2 weeks were a blur of chaos for everyone except me. I stayed in my lane. I focused on my work. I focused on Alex. We went to the movies. We cooked dinner together. We worked on his coding project. Our house was peaceful. But outside our walls, the storm was raging. I heard about it through the grapevine and from the few frantic text messages I received from my father, who was trying to mediate but failing. The consequences hit Amanda and Greg like a freight train. First, it was the school. St. Augustine didn't play games. When the tuition wasn't paid by Wednesday, the children were administratively withdrawn. Amanda tried to make a scene, tried to blame a banking error, but the school had my email. They knew the money wasn't coming. On Thursday, I saw Amanda's SUV in the parking lot of the local public middle school. She was wearing sunglasses and a hat, trying to hide. She had to enroll them. She had no choice. Rumors started flying around town. In our small suburban community, news travels fast. People were whispering. Why did the Miller kids switch schools in the middle of the week? Did Greg lose his job? Did they go broke? Amanda, who had spent years curating an image of perfection, was suddenly the subject of pity and speculation. Then came the bills. Without my $5,000 monthly deposit, their bank account went into the red almost immediately. Their mortgage payment bounced. Their car lease payments were overdue. I learned later that Greg tried to keep the country club membership. He went there on Saturday to play golf, trying to pretend everything was normal. But when he tried to order drinks at the turn, the bartender quietly told him his account was suspended for non-payment and lack of a valid credit card. Greg had to walk back to the clubhouse in front of his golf buddies, pack up his bag, and leave. The humiliation must have been crushing. I ran into them once, about 10 days after the barbecue. It was at the grocery store. I was in the produce aisle picking out apples. I turned the corner and saw Amanda. She looked different. Her hair wasn't perfectly blown out. She was wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt, not her usual casual chic designer wear. She looked tired. She had dark circles under her eyes. She saw me. She froze. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I just nodded at her. Hello, Amanda. She looked at my cart. She looked at me. For a second I thought she was going to scream. I thought she was going to throw a jar of pasta sauce at me, but she didn't. Her shoulders slumped. She looked at the generic brand cereal in her own cart. You really did it, she said softly. Her voice sounded hollow. I did, I said. Greg is sleeping in the guest room, she said. It was an admission she clearly didn't want to make but couldn't hold in. He blamed me. He said I should have been nicer to you. He's right, I said simply. She flinched. We sold the Range Rover yesterday. We're down to one car. I'm sorry it's hard, I said, and I meant it. I didn't enjoy her suffering. I just refused to prevent it anymore. But you'll figure it out. You're smart, she laughed bitterly. I don't feel smart, I feel like a fool. Well, I said, that's a start. I pushed my cart past her. I didn't offer to pay for her groceries. I didn't offer to fix it. I just kept walking. Meanwhile, in my house, something beautiful was happening. Alex was thriving. Without the pressure of the family judging him, without the fear of the next barbecue or holiday dinner where he would be mocked, he was opening up. He had entered a regional coding competition for teenagers. He had been working on a program that used AI to help organize study notes for kids with ADHD. It was brilliant. The night of the competition, I sat in the auditorium of the local university. I watched my son walk onto the stage. He was wearing a button-down shirt I had ironed for him. He looked nervous, but he stood tall. He took the microphone. He didn't stutter. He explained his code. He demonstrated the interface. He answered questions from the judges. He was articulate, he was funny, he was confident. This was the boy my sister called limited. This was the boy she said would always need help. He didn't need help, he just needed to be seen. When they announced the winners, Alex took first place in his category. The crowd cheered. I stood up and clapped until my hands hurt. I was crying, but they were happy tears. We went out for pizza afterwards. Alex held his trophy on his lap in the booth. "Mom," he said, taking a bite of pepperoni pizza. Do you think Aunt Amanda knows about this?" "I don't know," I said. "I wish she knew," he said. "Not so I can be mean, but just so she knows I'm not stupid." "She knows you aren't stupid, Alex," I said. "She was just trying to make herself feel big by making you feel small. That's what bullies do." "I feel big now," he said, grinning. "You are big," I said. "You're huge." 2 weeks and 2 days after the barbecue, on a rainy Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole. It was Amanda. She was standing on the porch, holding a cheap umbrella that was turned inside out by the wind. She was soaking wet. I opened the door. "Can I come in?" she asked. Her voice was quiet. There was no arrogance in it, no demand, just a request. I stepped back. "Sure." She walked into the foyer. She dripped water onto the hardwood floor. She looked around my house like she had never seen it before. My house was small, but it was warm. It smelled like vanilla candles and dinner. It felt like a home. "I can get you a towel," I said. "No," she said. "I'm okay, I needed to talk to you." We went into the kitchen. I sat at the table. She sat opposite me. She didn't ask for coffee. She just clasped her hands together on the table. Her nails, usually perfectly manicured, were chipped. "We put the house on the market today," she said. I nodded. "I heard. We can't afford the mortgage," she said. "We're going to rent a townhouse over on the east side. It's smaller, much smaller." "The east side is nice," I said. "Yeah," she breathed out. She looked down at her hands. "Greg is staying." For now, we had a long talk. A really long talk. Without the money, without the distractions. We actually had to talk to each other. It was ugly, but it was real. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "I wanted to hate you, Julia. For the first week, I just walked around cursing your name. I told everyone you were a monster." "I know," I said. "But then," she paused, swallowing hard. "Then I looked at my kids. Connor came home from the public school yesterday. He was crying because he didn't have the right shoes. He said the other kids made fun of him." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "And I realized, that's what I did to Alex. I realized that my son was feeling exactly what I made your son feel, and it broke my heart." I stayed silent. I let her speak. This was the first time in her life she was doing the emotional work. "I was jealous of you," she said. The words came out in a rush, like she had to vomit them up. "Jealous?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "Amanda, you had everything. You were the golden child." "I had the attention," she corrected. "But you had the independence. You had the career. You built something. I just married well and spent money. I never did anything myself. I felt so useless next to you. So I tried to make myself feel better by pretending I was above you. By pretending my kids were better than yours." She looked me in the eyes. "I targeted Alex because he was an easy target, and that makes me sick. I look at myself now and I see a bully. A grown woman bullying a child." She started to cry, not the fake, pretty crying she used to do to get her way with Dad. This was ugly, heaving sobbing. "I am so sorry, Julia. I am so sorry. I don't want the money back. I don't expect you to fix anything. I needed you to know that I know I was wrong." I watched her cry. I felt a softening in my chest. It wasn't total forgiveness, that would take time. But it was the beginning of peace. "Thank you for saying that," I said. Just then, Alex walked into the kitchen. He was holding his trophy from the competition. He stopped when he saw Amanda crying. He looked at me unsure. "It's okay, Alex," I said. "Aunt Amanda is just visiting." Amanda wiped her face frantically, trying to compose herself. She turned to look at Alex. She saw the trophy. "What's that?" she asked, her voice thick. Alex hesitated. He held the trophy a little tighter. "I won a coding competition, first place." Amanda looked at the trophy. Then she looked at Alex, really looked at him. "You won?" she asked. "Yeah," Alex said. "I built a study aid app." Amanda nodded slowly. That's amazing, Alex. I didn't know you could do that." "I've been doing it for a long time," Alex said. "I know," Amanda whispered. "I wasn't looking. I'm sorry I wasn't looking." She stood up. She looked at him with a strange expression, respect. Congratulations, she said. You must be very smart. I am, Alex said. Amanda let out a wet, shaky laugh. Yeah, you are, she turned back to me. I have to go pack boxes. Okay, I said. I walked her to the door. The rain was still falling. Julia, she said, turning back on the porch. Yeah, maybe, when we get settled in the new place. Maybe we could try again, just dinner, pizza, nothing fancy. I looked at my sister. She was stripped of her luxury, her pretense, and her pride. She looked more like my sister now than she had in 20 years. Maybe, I said. Give it some time, but maybe, she nodded. She opened her broken umbrella and walked out into the rain. 6 months have passed since the barbecue. Life is very different now. The silence at the family gatherings is gone, but so is the tension. We had Thanksgiving at my house this year. It was the first time I ever hosted. Usually, it was at Mom and Dad's or at Amanda's big house. But Amanda lives in a townhouse now, and Mom and Dad are getting older. So I offered. The dynamic has shifted. I am no longer the quiet background character. I am the head of the table. Amanda and Greg came. They brought a store-bought pie because they didn't have time to bake. Greg is driving a used Honda. Amanda is working as a receptionist at a dental office. She hates it, but she does it. She's tired, but she seems more grounded. They didn't talk about country clubs or vacations. They talked about work. They talked about the kids' grades. When we sat down to eat, there was a moment of awkwardness. Everyone remembered the last time we were all around a table. Then Alex spoke up. I can say grace, he said. Everyone looked at him. In the past, Amanda would have rolled her eyes or interrupted. Today, she just folded her hands and bowed her head. Thank you for this food, Alex said clearly. Thank you for my mom. And thank you that we are all here together. Amen, everyone said. After dinner, we sat in the living room. Alex brought out his laptop. He wanted to show everyone his latest project. He was building a website for a local animal shelter. He hooked it up to the TV. Look, he said, pointing to the screen. If you click here, it shows the dogs that need adoption. My father put on his glasses. That's incredible, son. You made this? All by himself, I said, sipping my wine. Amanda was sitting on the floor. She leaned forward. How do you make the pictures move like that? She asked. It was a genuine question. Alex's face lit up. He started explaining the code, using words like Java and CSS. Amanda didn't understand half of it, but she listened. She nodded. She asked follow-up questions. I watched them. I watched my sister treating my son like a human being, like an equal. I realized then that the money I stopped giving them was never the help they needed. The real help was letting them fall. By taking away the safety net, I forced them to stand on their own feet. And by standing on their own feet, they learned how to look people in the eye instead of looking down on them. The road isn't perfect. We still have moments. Mom still sighs about how small Amanda's new house is. Amanda still has days where she's bitter about her lost status. But the abuse is gone. The disrespect is gone. I looked around my living room. I saw my family, imperfect, messy, but finally real. I looked at Alex, explaining his code with his hands waving in the air, his eyes bright with joy. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was the smartest person in the room. And I wasn't a victim either. I was Julia. I was a mother. I was a provider. And for the first time, I was the author of my own story. I took a deep breath, savoring the peace. It had cost me a lot of money over the years to learn this lesson, but the refund, the self-respect I got back, was worth every penny.